Uh, Hello, everyone. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on where you're joining from. Thank you for joining in our today's keynote session, which is titled Navigation, the IPCC Report for a Sustainable Future. So today's session, this is keynote session, will be live and will be recorded. And this keynote session will be an insightful session which will delves into the crucial aspects of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change seventh assessment report. It will offer a comprehensive understanding and engaging youth, faculty, and researchers in its discourse. So the session will be, this keynote session will be presented by our respected Professor James Kia and Professor Dr. AKM Saiful Islam. To commence this keynote session, we have a keynote address from Professor James Kia, who is the current chair of the IPCC. His keynote address will be titled The Road Ahead for the IPCC AR7, How Young Faculty and Researchers Might Engage with IPCC During the 7th Cycle. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here in person, which is why he have shared graciously a recording of himself, which he wants us to share with you in this keynote session. So his keynote will provide valuable insights into the upcoming IPCC Assessment Report 7, offering a roadmap for active involvement by emerging academics. So without further ado, let's hear it from Jim.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this really important meeting. And as you asked, what I'm going to do are two things. I am going to look at what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has decided to do during its 7th assessment cycle during the 2020s. And then I'm also going to address the question about how younger scientists can get involved in IPCC. So just to say on the process for deciding what to do during the 7th cycle, in January, we had the first plenary session of the 7th cycle in Istanbul, and the main job of that cycle was to agree the programme of work for the 2020s. And what I'll run through is what was achieved and also what was not achieved. So basically, we were able to decide on the content of the 7th cycle, but not the full timetable. Now, something that we needed to take into account in making the decisions was a number of invitations from the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and delegates gave that a lot of consideration. So the first invitation was to consider how IPCC could align its activities with the second and subsequent global stocktakes under the Paris Agreement. And just to say, the first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement on climate change concluded at the end of last year, and the second global stocktake will conclude in 2028. So a bit of time away, but not that far. Second invitation from the Framework Convention on Climate Change was to update 1994 technical guidelines on impacts and adaptation. Now, that's obviously nearly almost 30 years ago now, so they are going to require a bit of work if they are to be updated. And finally, there was an invitation to contribute to the Framework Convention's activities in addressing the global goal on adaptation established as part of the Sharm el-Sheikh process, especially looking at metrics and indicators for adaptation. And just to say, when we talked about this in Istanbul in January, the second global stocktake was a critical consideration. And one of the tensions in the debates was the question about timeliness in terms of policy relevance, and also the time it takes to build inclusiveness more scientifically into the cycle. So what were the key decisions that were taken in Istanbul about 6 weeks ago? First of all, governments confirmed that there will be a special report on cities and climate change, which will be produced by early 2027. And just to say, work on that is already underway, and there will be a scoping meeting in Latvia for that in the middle of April. There was no other decision to produce any other special reports, though different governments had made various suggestions. Some suggested tipping points, for example, others suggested loss and damage, and others were interested in having a report that would specifically help to inform the second global stocktake. But ultimately, there was no coherent decision, no consensus, so there is only going to be one special report on cities and climate change. There will be the 3 usual working group reports on the physical science of climate change, impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and mitigation. And the governments decided that these reports should be produced in that order: physical science, impacts and adaptation, mitigation, unless otherwise decided. There will be a synthesis report produced by late 2029. I should say the synthesis report is my responsibility rather than the responsibility of the individual working groups. And there will be that distinct product revising and updating the 1994 technical guidelines on impacts and adaptation, with a special emphasis on adaptation indicators, metrics, and methodologies. The forgotten part of IPCC is often the task force on global greenhouse gas emission inventories, which proposes the methodologies that governments use to report their emissions to the Framework Convention on Climate Change. And there will be a methodology report on short-lived climate forcers, that is pollutants like sulfur dioxide, black carbon, etc., and that will be produced by 2027. And there will also be an expert meeting and methodology report on carbon dioxide removal technologies and carbon capture utilization storage, also to be produced by the end of 2027. It's worthwhile saying the carbon capture and storage topic was last looked at 2006, so again a long time ago. And just to emphasize, on carbon dioxide removal technologies, this does not cover nature-based solutions. It is the technical solutions that will be looked at. We also have been invited to consider a series of expert meetings on various topics to help reinforce the process. But it's worthwhile saying, if we try to get all this done in time for the second global stocktake in 2028, this may leave not so much space for expert meetings as we perhaps what we would have liked. Now, what we did not decide there, just to emphasize, is the timing of the working group reports. And this is something that will be decided at the next plenary session of IPCC, which will take place in late July. Just to say, the critical question there will be what is available in time for that second global stocktake in 2028. So just to reach some broader conclusions on where we are, the big debate when we get to the next plenary session will be the timeliness of our reports in terms of fitting in with the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change activities versus the inclusivity. How quickly can we get groups that have perhaps been more excluded in the past into the process, and also the availability of accessible science. But just to flag, this is a cycle that is going to be very heavy on adaptation. And just to say, in my role as chair of IPCC, I'm now hosted by the International Institute for Environment Development in London, whose activities are largely focused on adaptation and development. So we have a very strong background. I personally have a strong background to help there. Now, in the question of participation of younger people in the process, I've got a few very obvious suggestions. The first one is to publish your scientific work and make sure it gets prominence, because that means it can be assessed and cited in IPCC reports. So publishing is the start. The second means of participating is by reviewing draft IPCC reports when they're put out for expert and government review. These review processes are entirely open. All you need to do is sign up. You will then be able to download the material, the draft material, and you can review it. And that's another way, because your contribution there will be acknowledged. An even more direct way of doing it is to get nominated as either authors of a report or as participants in a scoping meeting. And just to flag that authors and scoping meeting participants are nominated by governments and observer organizations. So the key issue there is to engage with your focal point, which in India is with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and make sure that they know about your work and can propose you. Just to say, something that does come up for some developing countries is that the focal points are located in meteorology departments or agencies. And it's quite important there that these focal points understand and relate to wider networks, including in the social sciences and economics. Now, we are taking the engagement of younger people very seriously in this cycle. And as a result, we have actually appointed one of the IPCC vice chairs as a lead to engage with young people and encourage their participation. And that is Ladislaus Changa, who comes from Tanzania. And he was previously Tanzania's focal point for IPCC. He's now a vice chair, so well understands the issue of getting people engaged. We also have a program of PhD scholarships for younger people from developing countries, and that was started with the funds that IPCC received after getting the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2007. And that process continues, and we actually have support from some other philanthropies to help us with the scholarship program. And one of the things that I'm very ambitious to do in this cycle is to extend the scope of the scholarship program to provide funds for chapter scientists. That is, younger people who can be directly engaged with the production of IPCC reports by supporting the production of individual chapters. I was co-chair of Working Group 3 in the last cycle, along with my colleague, Professor Shukla from the University of Ahmedabad, and we ran what was quite a successful chapter scientist program with funding from the UK government. There was one developing country chapter scientist for each of our chapters, and we know, because we surveyed them, it enhanced their careers, they got embedded in international networks, and they got their names on jointly authored papers with other people, really, really enhancing their careers. So just to finish off, I am looking forward very much to this IPCC cycle, and I'm also looking forward to seeing younger people helping to produce the reports and also being cited in the reports that we produce during this cycle. So thanks for your attention, and I, with all of my best wishes for the rest of this conference.
So I would like to thank Mr. Jim for sharing his invaluable insights with us through this platform in this keynote session in the Gobeshona Global Conference. So moving forward, we have with us, Dr. A.K.M. Saiful Islam, who is a professor at the Institute of Water and Flood Management of Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. Dr. Islam has led several major international scientific climate change assessments and reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. He contributed to the IPCC's 5th, 6th assessment report and IPCC's special report on the global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius as an expert reviewer. Let's delve into, without delving into details or anything, let's just open the floor for Dr. Saiful Islam, sir. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fatin. Very nice introduction. for your kind words, and welcome everyone of this Gobeshona conference. I'm going to um, present the recent report we have published, and this is one of the report where I get opportunity to work with the late Professor Shalimul Haq. This is his last scientific work, and also Dr. Mizan Khan and Apsara. So I'm going to show the presentation. So I'm sharing my screen based on the report. Report is already, you can download. It has been published. It was actually, we tried to publish the full report before COP 28 meeting, but unfortunately we only published the summary because Professor Hawk expired and many other issues. So, but later this year we are able to publish this report. So I'm going to show you the presentation, the same presentation we shared in COP28 meeting in Dubai. The report is actually climate change impact in Bangladesh. And this is a synthesis led by International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICAD, and in collaboration with Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology. And I am working there as a professor and director, Institute of Water and Flood Management. And along with, as I mentioned, the distinguished Professor Salimul Haq, who was there, and Professor Mizan Khan and Afsara bint Mirza also contributing this report. First, we started couple of slides that you already heard from Professor Jim that how and what IPCC is doing and how we can be engaged with IPCC and what is the plan of this seventh assessment cycle. Now I talk about the sixth assessment cycle, that is AR6 cycle, where there are several reports. You can see the posters of these reports. Starting from the bottom right, bottom left actually, you can see the global warming 1.5 degrees centigrade report. This was a very important report because the Paris Agreement, there was a clause that we have to limit global warming by 2 degrees centigrade. But developing nations should pursue to limit it up to 1.5 degrees. So if we are able to limit by 1.5 degree, what will be the benefit? If not, what will the consequences if we exceeded that? There's a special request, and IPCC provided it as a special report from the member state country. The request comes, so IPCC studied and published. And the next report is ocean and cryosphere in changing climate. Because recent decades, there are severe consequence changes observed in the ocean and cryosphere, which impacted particularly on the extremes, cyclone storms, and also glacier lake outburst, and many other ocean warming. So ocean get serious importance to how ocean and cryosphere region is impacted. And then third was changes of land on the biosphere. And this is also important, impact everyone, livelihood, food security, and many processes, chemical processes, etc. This is a special report, actually, was the before IPCC full sixth assessment report, which is on first working group, working on impacts, physical science basis in the middle, you can see. It was published in 2021. Second working group worked on the impacts and adaptation and vulnerability. And third working group worked on mitigation of climate change. Last report published 2020. And finally, on that, a summary for policymakers synthesis report. This synthesis report is a synthesis of all six reports. It was published in 2023. And this is slightly delayed because of, as you know, that COVID-19 pandemic. So we get some changes of this. I was contributing on physical science basis report with chapter 12, so chapter 10 as a contributing author, and 9 and technical summary. And this is also published some poster, like 2 pages synthesis on the 2 page report, which is we also published in the IPCC. For each different sectors, we have this special 2 page flat type report. And that is also very important because it's very easy to comprehend and easy to read. So I was also contributing this 2 page summary. If you consider why and how human influence actually has been, over the last 150 years, and we can see that the impact on the climate change is actually we have never been seen. If we consider that global warming in 2000 years, we never have such long. If you left side, if you have a look on that, you can see that over last 10,000 years or over last 20,000 years, the warming is unprecedented, and it was now about 1.1 degree in the last assessment report. And but if we consider that what and when we go into 1.5 degree, which is our assessment shows it is not take more than 2 decades. That means by 2040, most of the scenarios show that we are going global warming exceeding 1.5 degree. On the other hand, why it was happened? If you have a look on that graph, you can see that now it is clearly scientifically understandable that it is caused by the greenhouse gas. And it is human caused, because if we simulate the models, global climate model, we can see that simulations with the natural variability or solar or volcanic activities is not matching the same warming observed over from 1950 to 2020. But if we insert the greenhouse gases, which is the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and CFC gases, then the model shows the observation and simulation are following the same path. So it is clear. But the last around 200 years, we are producing huge amount of greenhouse gas due to industrialization, due to agriculture activity, due to other activities, and that in the atmosphere, and that is causing global warming. So it is now clear, and it is no, I think, doubt in scientific community that this is because of the human influence. We also see that over the last many years, if we consider like for carbon dioxide, it is unmatched over the last 2 million years. If you consider the glacier in the mountain is retreating, is unmatched over 2,000 years. If we consider the changes in the warming, it is around 125,000 years. We have not seen like that compared to last decade of warming. If we see the sea level rise, which is faster rate over the century for 3,000 years, never happened this kind of rise of the sea level. If you see the Arctic ice coverage, which becomes smaller because of the global warming, and we see the ice is melting, and the Arctic and Antarctic as well. And it was about 1,000 years we have not seen like this. If we consider the ocean is absorbing 90% of heat, which is faster than any time since last ice age. And ocean also absorbs CO2, in the excess CO2 in the atmosphere. That is also about 2,000 years. We never have such kind of ocean acidification because CO2 is reacting with the H2O, and then become acidic, and then this ocean acidification is unprecedented. And in the left side, if you see, we are in 1985, we have the scenarios is about 280 per million CO2, but now it's more than 410, or recently it's 420 ppm CO2 in the atmosphere. It's continuously rising. And that impacted the record number of warming days. For example, last year, 2023, it was the warmest year of all record. Particular day was the warmest day since we have the record. So this is in October figure, but in this year, the whole cycle is complete. 2023 three is the warmest of all known record years we have the records. So it's breaking the numbers. So that's alarming. I mean, and the scientific study shows in the IPCC that it will increase. So as I mentioned, CO2, sea level, Africa is glacier. Then what happens? Because these are impacting also the extremes, because too much wind in the ocean give energy to the extremes like cyclones, like a storm, like precipitation. They are evaporating very fast, and also drying. Evapotranspiration rate is very fast. It becomes drought. So that means when we have more warming, that impacted the water cycle, and that impacted our Earth. Actually, the extremes like heat wave, like drought, like heavy rainfall, or fire weather, which is a condition when weather is high. So when the dry, heat and windy condition, then fire weather condition become more frequent. You can see bushfire, forest fire in Australia, California, and others. So in Bangladesh, we also see northeast region is drought, particularly Rabi season. And if so much, I mean, if heat and warming is increasing, that means soil becomes stressed, and that is impacted. We also see ocean, as I mentioned, absorb warming, it becomes acidified, it also loses. And in terms of also precipitation, each 1 degree actually increase 7% of precipitation as the latest says. So that means more evapotranspiration, more moisture, holding capacity more, that creates sudden downpour, and rainfall is higher. Particularly monsoon rainfall forecast is it's increasing. So we have already seen last 2000 year unprecedented events. We are expecting this will be more frequent and more intense. And this is also global influence on the Earth. And these are a small hexagon actually represented region. For example, we are in South Asian SS region. And there is also number of hot extremes, observed extremes are increasing. And almost all the regions of the world, it is now clear that human influence contributing to observe hot extremes, except a few reasons. You can see that color is like a gray type, and also has because of low agreement or limited data. But in general, the earth is warmer. It becomes more hot, and more hot extremes is occurring. If you consider the precipitation, the observed changes are actually geographically varied. It's a regional, due to regional change of the hydrologic cycle and water cycle and circulation patterns. The monsoon region become more wetter, and dry region become more drier. And heavy precipitation occurs with a very high confidence. But on the other hand, some regions which are like Mediterranean, which are low agreement, and some regions we have decreasing precipitation. If you see the ecological and agricultural drought, for example, South Asia has low agreement, but like West Central Africa or Mediterranean or West Central Europe, you see that they are already increasing the drought, particularly African region, West African, Central Africa, West South African, and East South African region are already observed agriculture and drought. And this will change in the future and increasing more frequent and more intense. So extremes climate compared to the 1850 and 19, we'll see that each 1 degree increment will, or even half a degree increment will increase this extremes. It becomes more intense and more frequent. For example, in temperature, hottest day in 1 decade is now 1.2 degree. The same hottest day in 1 decade is going to be 5+5.1 degree. Say, for example, in Bangladesh, we call heat wave at 36 degree centigrade. But if you consider at 4 degree global warming, it will be 36 plus 5.1, and it could be 41, which is extremely severe heat wave. So the present climate will be changed future, but the changes will not be that devastating if you can limit global warming in 1.5. For example, it will be additional 1.9 degree, but not 5 degree. So that is important. So why global warming is very devastating for regions like South Asia or Bangladesh? Because it impacts not only the climate system, but also the extremes. For example, drought, it will be more 5 times more in a decade. That means every 2 alternative year, you get a drought that has been occurred in 10 years in the past. So, for example, precipitation also be, say, extreme event that happened. Like last year, we have huge precipitation in Chiang region. But this event may be occurred in 1 in 10 years, but in the future, it will be 2 more under 4 degree warming, which means every 3 years we can see such situation. Snow region will lose the snow area, snow cover extent because of the global warming, and it will up to 25% loss. Similarly, cyclone proportional cyclone. We have seen many cyclones in the last decade, last 7 years. Almost every season, pre-monsoon and post-monsoon, we have seen intense cyclone. We have cyclone Amphan super cyclone in 2020. We have seen such devastation. And IPCC said that in the future, this extreme proportionally will be increased 30% more. So this report, IPCC shows that there are a number of climatic impact drivers which impact our climate system condition, mean events and extremes that also affect the society or ecosystem. For example, extreme heat or number of cold spell or heat wave spell or ocean warming. So IPCC has listed about one climatic impact driver. Similarly, is different than hazard because hazard is only negative side of the impact, but impact driver could be positive or negative. And this impact driver listed, you can see with the confidence, with a high confidence of increasing, medium confidence of increasing, or high confidence of decreasing, or low medium confidence of decreasing. And it's a different reason as I shown in the past in the hexagon. Like for example, this is for the globe, but we also have get Bangladesh, South Asian region, how this will be changed. As I mentioned that for the heat and cold, wet and dry, wind and snow and ice, other and coastal category. Under this category, mean surface temperature, extreme heat, cold spell, frost, and mean precipitation, river, flood, heavy precipitation, landslide, aridity, and hydrological, agriculture, and ecological drought under wet and dry condition. You can see from the bar that some of them very confident that it will increase in the future. For example, mean surface temperature and extreme. On the other hand, cold spell or cold frost will be decreasing. That's also with a high confidence. But some cases, for example, how the river flood will increase. We have seen that it is mixed. Some region will increase, some region with high confidence, some with medium confidence. But overall, the signal is positive. That means in future, we'll see the increasing of river flood. On the other hand, you can see also yellow with medium confidence decreasing. Both reasons, as we see the previously, that some region, dry region become drier, wet region become wetter. Similarly, other parameter also show even the open ocean. We can see the ocean temperature, marine heat, and ocean's acidity will be increased. Coastal flooding in Bangladesh, we are very flat topography. Coastal erosion, marine heat wave, and ocean acidity will be increased in the future. And this is the compare in Asia, as I mentioned, that we are in a South Asia region. So in our region, we see extreme heat, air temperature will be increasing and already emerged. That means if we consider the natural variability with the emerged condition, you see that is already exceeding natural variability. That means it's already exceeding the expected changes in the nature without greenhouse gas. So we call it emerge. So if it is see that it's already emerged and with this dot and some of them is like it will be emerged in the future and but many climatic impact driver, around 31 driver we see, and many regions is going to be impacted by this global warming. And there is 90% confidence that temperature, heat extreme will be increased, cold spell will decrease, and atmosphere CO2 heavy precipitation, glacier permafrost will increase. In Bangladesh, in this report, we focus mostly on the Bangladesh, as you know, three big rivers, Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna. And it's a delta. It's a progressive delta, populous delta, and Jamuna, Padda, and Meghna. Ganges is termed as a Padda and inside Bangladesh, and Brahmaputra inside Bangladesh, Meghna, and Meghna is already Meghna. So this Meghna we divided in upper and lower. And it is very lower topography in the down. We have seen that in Bangladesh, even a small country, but there are expected changes in the floods, like river and flood in the Brahmaputra, in the Ganges, in the Meghna. We also see that drought in the northwest region is become more frequent and severe. Is projected to be increasing in the future. Salinity, because of the sea is continuously rising, saline water push towards land, salinity is increasing. Landslide, this is a hilly region in southeast, we see the landslide is increasing. On the other hand, central part, we have see heat wave, precipitation caused drainage condition and urban flooding. In the northeast hilly region, which is surrounded by Meghalaya, Tripura, and Barak Basin, we see that flash flood in the monsoon season, particularly this season, that could cause devastation. In 2017 alone, actually 90% crop of the area is devastated by early flash flood. So, what are the possible changes in Bangladesh? In 2000, Bangladesh has experienced since 185 extreme weather event, and in June 2023, temperature surpasses 40 degrees during country's most prolonged period. And tropical cyclone have ripped through coastal communities, costing on average 7% of our GDP. And this is a figure shows the global warming will increase, the cost of adaptation and precipitation, extreme soil moisture, temperature will be increasing in the future. So this is the figure of this report. You can see Bangladesh climate impact is cascade of effects in people's life. We have seen cyclone, storm surge, people are killed by strong winds and rains, and homestead and infrastructure are destroyed. The economy suffer, recovery is very hard. On the other hand, sea level rise, flooding, heavy rainfall, frequent extremes, crops are destroyed and less food is available. So people are leave home to find safety and food and work. For heat and drought, it becomes dangerous for hot inside and outside. People fail ill, and heat kills crops and livestock, and uh, people lose livelihoods and poverty rises. So these are a cascade of impact. And in some example, for example, extreme rainfall in 2070 was twice as likely as to occur, like heat stress rise by up to 60% for factory workers. And cyclone Amphan, which is super, say, washed away 7.5 kilometer of coastal embankments. Tropical cyclones cost 0.7% GDP each year. So these figures are actually alarming. And alongside that, sea level Bangladesh rising 3 to 8 to 5.8 millimeter per year, faster than the global average. Devastating flood, as I mentioned, that it was already in 2017, destroys summer paddy crops and twice as likely. Climate impacts are already damaging ecosystem, livelihood, infrastructure, and food security. Extreme heat, already I mentioned that heat stress, cutting lives and reducing. So current safeguard will face challenge, keeping pace with the future challenges. And under the highest emission scenario, sea level rise Bangladesh projected to breach the current system of coastal defense and embarkment, potentially inundated 80% of coastal zones. Coastal embankments are damaged and washed away in cyclone Amphan, and allowing storm surge to flood up to 15 kilometers inland and facing 500,000 families from there. So even accelerated climate action, continue warming and more extreme weather will stress adaptation effort in Bangladesh, making it harder to protect lives and livelihoods. We have seen that impacts increasing at an alarming rate. And in the southern Bangladesh, sea level could displace 0.9 million people by 2050. And more saline water could disrupt fisheries, disproportionately acting poor cascadal communities for whom freshwater fish are important source of protein. In the IPCC position, you see the due to climate change, sea level is rising, and its rate is higher with the higher warming. It could be up to 1 meter. And these dotted lines shows that there is a low probability, but there is a high impact if ice sheet is rapidly instability and it collapses. And in such case, it could be up to 2 meters. So we don't want to see such devastating case. We cannot even think about, because our coastal region is 0 to 5 meters. If around 2 meters will rise, then is huge populations in this area and economy and under the country there, so will be devastating losses. So we must limit global warming, and future risks tropical cyclone will be increased. For example, cyclone Amphan in 2020 actually, the number of exposed stars would be 50 to 8% higher than when it meant rainfall in 2020. So it's a comparison. If the same cyclone occur in 2100, the SARS people expect exposure will be 50 to 80% higher. So that's I think some of the figures that we actually try to collect from IPCC and literature. But I am to show some of the actions in Bangladesh government is taking for in terms of its policy and planning and implementation. Bangladesh government has prepared a national adaptation plan, which is for 2023 to 2050. It is recognized as global leader in adaptation. In 2015, first at least developed country to develop national adaptation program, NAPA, of action. And also it recently published, as I mentioned, that Bangladesh National Adaptation Plan, NAP, by 2022, 30 to 2050. Also published Delta Plan in Delta Netherlands government, and Delta Plan 2100 Bangladesh also think it becomes prosperous, so it also published National Mujib Prosperity Plan, so that country become prosperous by 2041, despite the challenges and trying to become more resilient. It also shows that in the cyclone, few who had died during the cyclone has fallen from 6 digits. For example, in 1970 Ebola cyclone, around 300,000 people was died. But in recent cyclone like Sitrang, 35 people has died. So Bangladesh is doing huge success on reducing the human fatality. The cyclone preparedness program. On the other hand, community-based early warning system of the country strengthening uh, and um, the upholder recently government take a project called CEIP, Coastal Embankment Improvement Project, and coastal afforestation and elevated housing also reduce human cost and damage of extreme events. And research into saline tolerant variety like rice floating agriculture regions in that region that suffer flooding and water saving technologies in drought prone areas are example of strategies to help safeguard food security and face increasingly extreme weather. In the last few decades, number of people who died during the cyclone has fallen from 6 digit to double digit, as I mentioned earlier, largely due to success of CPP. In this and other national policy and plans, government of Bangladesh increasingly recognize the vital importance of indigenous and local knowledge, putting the life experience and priorities of communities at the front light of adaptation activities. So currently, the government of Bangladesh has spent approximately 6 to 7% of its annual budget of adaptation, about 75% which comes from domestic sources. However, skilling adaptation measures as outlined in the National Adaptation Plan 2023 to 2050 will require 7 times than the current estimate. Bangladesh also wish to strategically partner with other Asian and least developed countries to co-produce knowledge and further strengthening adaptation efforts. COP20 presents the opportunity in Dubai to operationalize a more equitable fund upholds principles of climate justice to collectively address adaptation finance needs for vulnerable countries. In the last COP meeting, actually, it was agreed to loss and damage deals with pledges totally 655 million. It was increased to up to 900 million so far. And there are concerned, however, about the size, volume of the funds, about the funding mechanism being managed by the World Bank. So what the main criticism of the pledge are that from form of loans rather than grant, which will add to the vulnerable countries already significant debt burdens. Additionally, the pledges are not clear on how the money will be disbursed with potential that it will be not reach the countries that need it most. And COP28 presents the opportunity to operationalize more equitable funds that are afforded. So I almost last slide in my presentation. Bangladesh need bolder adaptation response alongside a functional loss and damage funds and a transition away to fossil fuels. Principle of climate justice and to collectively address climate finance needs for the vulnerable countries such as Bangladesh. Finally, supporting communities most risk of climate impacts require transition from fossil fuels, yet despite some strengthening of climate policy and failing cost of low carbon energy, the world is heading for around 2.7 degrees centigrade by 2100. Bangladesh itself is still overwhelmingly reliant on fossil fuel, generating 1% of electricity from wind and solar in 2020. Even though Bangladesh does not have its historic responsibility, country is committing to reduce greenhouse gas by 5% by 2030. Um, Overall, Bangladesh ability to continue responding to climate change requires multiple strands of actions, national coordination and government investment, prioritizing local-led adaptation, equitable loss and damage financing, and large-scale shift to secure carbon energy. So thank you everyone. These are the reference of the report. It's in the online. You can download this. I stop here with my presentation.
Oh, thank you so much, sir, for your insightful, presentation. You have actually shared us the comprehensive idea about the synthesis report. To be honest, it's actually like it's a really important message and presentation because people are still not aware of the situation. Where are we at? Actually, people been asking us, what is 1.5 degrees Celsius? Why are we aiming that? People needs to learn about the current situation, the current alarming situation, actually, that you have presented that a half a degree increment in the temperature can increase the amount of drought, precipitation, and etc., which means more losses. And no amount of adaptation can actually prevent us, to prevent the losses of lives and everything. And to be honest, thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insights and about the report with us in this Gobeshona Global Conference in this session. I know, sir, we have been calling you in you have agreed to providing your presentation with us in a really short notice, and you are traveling, but you are here with us and sharing your insights. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, sir, for that honor. So people are actually really asking for your presentation. If you're, I have shared the full synthesis report link into the chat box, and sir, if you will provide us your presentation as well, I will share it with our participants.
Okay. No
Okay,
problem.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So with this, I guess we can end our session here. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. If our participants have any question or have any comments or feedbacks, please feel free to share. I will share that with sir. If he have anything to provide us, I will share with us with the participants later. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's been a really pleasure to hearing from you. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you everyone for attending. Yeah.
And everyone. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.